going to talk to Tim Curry about Congo from
Home Alone.
Yeah, the movie where the monkeys don't come into the last half an hour of the movie. Just like when Jason doesn't go into Manhattan until the last 20 minutes of Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah,
I know, they should.
That's my favorite Friday the 13th movie.
Jason takes a cruise and ends up in Manhattan.
Yeah, seriously, they should have called that movie Jason Takes a Cruise. Jason Voorhees looking for love in all the wrong places.
They have a pool party every Friday night. So you can the Tony Conference you rock kind of in mind.
Hey! Hi!
And
Hello!
we had to wait. I'm like,
Mike is losing his Spooky Empire virginity today. How does it feel, Mike?
This is
Feels
Mike.
awesome.
This is Mike
Awesome.
Young's first convention.
Did it hurt?
Not really. It feels good.
His first convention.
It's your
He
first
finally,
convention ever?
Yes.
finally busted his nut.
So he busted his,
It didn't hurt?
I'm convention Jerry today.
Well, you had some practice, right?
Yeah.
All right.
We should also get that McDonald's where you lost your virginity on tape too, commemorate that.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Okay, I had a question, but I lost it. We are sitting here waiting for Billy Bob Briggs. Joe Bob Briggs.
Billy Bob.
And what? Listening to a very weird song.
Yeah, let's do a very weird song. You can see the video, right?
This is a nice place. This is like the kind of place you'd have an Air Force One.
Oh, you didn't have the Q&A in here last year?
No,
I think
we
it was
did,
here,
but I'm
wasn't
saying
it?
this
Yeah.
is like the kind of place you'd have a ball. A ball.
Yeah, but you didn't come last year. You just came out of the Say the redhead in this video.
Just remember, Mike, they're just people too. They just get paid a little more than we do.
I know.
So don't act like a weirdo.
I'm not going to act like a weirdo.
Don't be like, oh my god, I love you, and blah, 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 blah.
Did you bring your Depends? Because I wet myself when I met Tom Wilson. So,
I'm thinking
Yeah, he
when you
did.
guys go out to lunch and stuff, I think I'm gonna buy another camera from Morgan. Cross real quick.
Yeah, so we can get some snapshots.
Oh man, it's pooping.
Yeah.
Yay, stop
Thank
it.
God.
All right, Alan, go ahead and do your dance. That's what he does at WOB. That's also what he does at WOB when Billy Jean comes on. Everyone watches too. It's pretty fascinating.
That is the Moon Rover.
Yeah, that is Moon Rover.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. You give it. What do you think? A 10 maybe? Maybe a 9.5.
9.5 is good.
Yeah.
Watch, I'm gonna get on YouTube for that weird wheelchair guy doing Moon Rover.
Do a quick look around the room here.
Hey, the crowd's filling up.
Yeah, Mike. See, the crowd's filling up.
Got a pretty good amount of rabid MonsterVision fans.
Inside the store and stuff like that.
All right, now I feel guilty because I don't have a damn thing to talk about. So they told me it was going to be Q&A, but I guess this sounds like a pretty well-educated crowd. So I'll just assume I can skip over the preliminaries and say, we're here at the convention this weekend to celebrate the 3 B's: blood, breasts, and beasts, right? Yeah.
Should we do the drive-in totals?
Tell me which direction you want to go here.
Well, I was going to say, if you want, we can take a seat, we can...
Okay, well, you should never sit in a comfy chair when you do an interview.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a rule of TV. Never give the guest a comfy chair.
See, I'm learning things already. So, well, I don't know, I look into this audience, and the one question that I always ask myself, especially, is I wonder if this is a driving crowd, if these are driving people.
Oh, definitely. The crowd at this convention?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Are you kidding me?
Well, I saw one of your videos, and that was, when you came out on stage, that was the first thing you asked the crowd, and you had them go through a drive-in oath.
Yeah, but I can't remember the drive-in oath. And the last time I did the drive-in oath, there were children present. and some parents got mad at me, so we don't do the drive-in oath anymore. I have to write the drive-in oath specifically for that crowd.
Okay.
Actually, can I tell a story about that? We just did the 56th anniversary celebration of the Transit Drive-In in Lockport, New York, which is in suburban Buffalo, and there were 4,000 people there in 1,100 cars, and we did do a special drive-in oath for that event in Western New York, because people always ask me, are there still drive-ins out there? Are there still drive-ins hanging on out there? And I say, yeah, there were fucking 4,000 people at the Lockport, at the Transit Drive-In in Lockport, New York last month.
Man, that's one of the things that I'm really sorry to see. Like a lot of them have kind of started to disappear. You know, I know we still have a few here in Florida, but
you got a great drive-in here in Florida. You got in Fort Lauderdale. You got the well, they used to call it the Swap Shop. I'm not sure what they call it now.
It's still called the Swap Shop.
It's still called the Swap Shop Drive-In. There's 24 screens, which is the biggest drive-in ever in the history of drive-ins. Florida historically was not a exceptionally, there weren't a whole lot of drive-ins in Florida. Ironically, you would think there would be because it's so sunny, but there were always the land in Florida would become so valuable that the drive-ins would get bought up for real estate developments. So there's very few places where you have land, that much land all in one piece, and so the Walmarts just gobbled it up.
that's too bad.
And golf courses, you're right.
Do you have a particular favorite drive-in, or?
Oh, I have a lot of favorite drive-ins. I mean, some of my favorite drive-ins are no longer around, like the Gemini Drive-In in Dallas, where we had the World Drive-In Movie Festival back in the 80s, and Stephen King came, and Roger Corman came, and stood up on top of the concession stand. That was one of the great drive-ins. That's the drive-in where they had the world premiere of 1 Million Years BC, and Raquel Welch was there. They had the premiere of True Grit, the original True Grit with John Wayne, and so that was a great drive-in that's no longer with us. American Airlines bought it for an airport parking lot. But the Spud Drive-In in Idaho has a giant potato in front of it. Is one of the classic drive-ins.
I love how they used to put like gimmicks and stuff to them sometimes.
Yeah, they still do. Occasionally you'll find drive-ins that have pony rides and fireworks shows and miniature golf courses. That drive-in in the Transit Drive-In in Lockport had a miniature golf course. Anything to get people to see. The drive-ins have a problem, which is that they only have one prime time of the day when they can show the movie, which is whenever it gets dark, and whereas the indoor theaters can show the movie 5 or 6 times. And so they would do all kinds of things to get you to show up at 4 in the afternoon. And so that could be, mini golf or they would do car washes. They would do any kind of circus acts.
Yeah. Yeah, or flea markets. I've been to
flea markets. That's the best. Yeah, that's the best one. Actually, there are quite a few drive-ins now that are like flea markets by day, drive-in by night.
I wish Orlando had it. But does anybody out in? Well, we've just been chatting away up here. Does anybody out there have any questions?
Hey, Joe Bob.
Hey.
I was wondering, can we expect another collection of essays like Profoundly Disturbing and Profoundly Erotic? I love those books, and I was hoping you'd have some more writing coming out.
Well, yeah, I was planning to do another one in the when I did the Profoundly, what he's referring to is a book I did a few years back called Profoundly Disturbing, Shocking Movies That Changed History. And I chose, originally we were going to do 50 of them actually, but I tend to write so long on each movie, you know, because I go into like the intimate detail of every single historical fact about the movie, that we had to cut that down to 15. So there are actually 35 movies that are already pre-selected that I could go and give that treatment to. So I probably will do a sequel to Profoundly Disturbing because it's been a good seller and the publisher is happy with it. The publisher, oddly enough, is Rizzoli, you know, which does like the Vatican's books. and so I'm a little off their normal list in terms of the kind of books they do books on like houses of Tuscany and how to redecorate them, you know, and then they have my stuff.
Do we have? Yes, right up front.
Yes, good your commentaries. Like I have some favorites, like Samurai Cop is probably the funniest. Yes. And Hell's Angel 69, and so historical, and I love that one. But I was wondering, what was one of your favorites, or maybe that you got really excited for, like when you knew you were going to do the commentary on the movie, it was just, you were ready?
Well, the way I got into the DVD commentaries is that I got a call a few years back from the owner of Elite Entertainment, and he said, I spit on your grave. I bought all the rights, so I spit on your grave. And I wondered if you'd like to do the commentary because the director says that you're the only person that's ever written a favorable review of this movie. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do the commentary. And in fact, I have a long-running feud with Roger Ebert about the movie because he attacked the movie in the 80s, in the 70s, and said it was like that movie was the best argument for censorship and that it was a pro-rape movie, and then he went to some grindhouse in Chicago, and the people in the audience were yelling to rape the girl, and it was disturbing on many moral levels and everything. And you know, of course, I always maintained that it was, you know, if you know anything about the movie, Mayer Zarki, the director, had named it Day of the Woman. He thought it was a feminist movie. He thought it was an anti-rape movie. And it was inspired by his experience with a rape victim. And so I did the commentary track, and I said, I'm not, it's like, I Spit on Your Grave disturbs people on many different levels. And it tends to disturb men more than women, actually. Not just for the bathtub scene. Men have a problem with it more than women do. And I said, so I don't know if I'll be able to do much comedy with it. As it turns out, I did a lot of comedy on that track, and because it had some funny elements to it. So anyway, after I did that commentary, I got a lot of emails from people saying, "Hey, I love the commentary, but there were these long sections of it where you weren't talking." Well, yeah, I mean, when the gang rape is actually happening, it's like, I'm not going to, be cracking jokes about these, and so, and they were like, we've already watched the movie, so we want to listen to the commentary, keep talking. And I realized that's what the form is. It's for people who have already seen the movie, but they want to watch it again with the commentary. And so all the other commentaries I did from then on are wall-to-wall talking. If you want to see the movie, with the dialogue at 5, I'm at 10, the dialogue is at 5. So if you want to watch the movie, turn off the commentary track. But with the commentary track on, I just did wall to wall, and I tried to hit I tried to be talking about the history of the movie or some other element of the movie at the exact moment that you're seeing it on the screen. Because I thought, what a wonderful tool that's never existed before in the history of the movies. You could always write about the movie and assume people could remember it or assume people could see it in the future, or you could go to a film class and show a clip and then talk about it, or talk about it and then show a clip. But here's a great tool where you can actually be talking about the scene exactly at the moment that people are watching the scene. I thought, what a wonderful thing, it's like, And so, I really worked hard on those to try to match and I mean, when you're working on Ray Dennis Steckler, it's not much fun, but I tried to match the commentary exactly to those moments.
I think that's like one of the best parts about DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff are those extras like the commentary.
Yeah, it's not really appreciated by Hollywood and the distributors and the people that put them out, is that they never really develop that very much, so they'll like get a famous person like an actor or director or somebody and just have them sit there and watch the movie and occasionally grunt, and they'll call that a commentary track. It's like they don't work as hard on the commentary tracks as they should.
I saw a question up here.
What was your favorite movie to host on MonsterVision?
Wow, favorite movie to host? By the way, I didn't answer your question. My favorite commentary track for a commentary track is Samurai Cop, the one that you like. My favorite, the best movie of all of those is probably either, not counting I Spit on Your Grave, it's probably Hell High or Warlock Moon is pretty good. And Hell's Angel, I like Hell's Angel 69 just because it has a complete history of the biker film in the course of that commentary track. Okay. But my favorite movie that I hosted, I'm not, probably The Warriors, because it lent itself to comedy and explication, and it's kind of a weird cult movie. It's like one of those one-of-a-kind movies. I like movies that can't be remade because they're one of a kind, although I'm sure they'll remake it, But so for those of you who didn't see it, we had a giant New York City subway map, and we showed exactly where the Warriors would get off the subway and which gangs lived in which neighborhoods and where they would fight and how they made themselves. It's based on Herodotus or something, like, this when the Greek army got trapped in Asia Minor and they had to make their way back to Greece, and so the Warriors is based on that, and so we had like the Asia Minor map and compared that to the New York City subway map, and have the guys coming back from Fort Tryon Park or wherever they started, and they had to come all the way through Manhattan and through Brooklyn and all get back to Coney Island. Coney Island was the mecca where the Warriors lived. And my cameraman Ernie could do a perfect imitation of that guy that goes, Warriors, Warriors, and so occasionally he would like be yelling in the background. That was just a fun commentary.
Do you think those episodes will ever be available?
Well, people ask me that all the time. I've got them in a storehouse. I mean, I don't know what to do with them. The problem is, I don't own the rights to the movie.
Yeah.
I own all that stuff. I own it. I mean, I was on TV for 14 years, 52 weeks a year, double features. That comes out to about 1,500 movies, and it's like just hours and hours and hours and hours of stuff. And so, I don't know how you would package it without the movie. Although some people suggested to me that maybe I should do the riff tracks thing where you sync it up to the movie. I'm not sure. How many of you would actually go to the trouble of doing that?
Really? Yes.
You would sync it up to the movie.
I've done that before.
You've done the riff tracks a lot?
Yeah, riff tracks, and then Brad Neely, who's like a humorist and animator, did this thing for Harry Potter where he redid all the audio, and it was hilarious. He actually got a cease and desist for that. It got so popular.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's like the old What's Up Tiger Lily, right? That Woody Allen did.
Yep, yeah. Or the Dark Side of the Moon with Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Everybody's done that one. It's kind of the same thing.
That's what I was going to ask. Even if you don't have the rights, if you were to make a DVD or something, an audio where you could line it up with the movie and listen along, I mean, that's something I would purchase, like right out the box. I mean, That's like they release older movies to attract like a couple or 5 or 10.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, I took, there's a friend of mine is an editor. She works on Jersey Shore. And she said, hey, I'll digitize all that stuff for you. And so I went and got like one of the tapes out of storage. She says, I need to see what the tape looks like. So I went and got one of the tapes out of storage, and she said, oh, I've never seen one of these in my life. And it's like, we don't really work with these anymore. Let me check. And so she goes and she checks around LA, and she finds a house that was still, or like a machine, some old like rusty machine somewhere that you can use to run these tapes. They're old giant Sony broadcast tapes from the 80s. You know, some of them are from the 80s, early 90s, and this is the movie channel show. You know, and I said, well, can you do it? And she, remember the guy on the Dick Van Dyke show? Remember Richie, the son? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, he now runs a post-production house, and he's a Joe Bob fan. And he said, "Oh, I can do it for you." And so he's going to help us like get that stuff transferred onto something that can be used.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you know the show that you did on the movie channel. You know, growing up before there was the internet, you know, shows like that were valuable because you know you can turn to the movie channel and watch a movie all night and not know what you're going to see when you're a young teenage boy. But you know, one of those shows, and you tell them, oh, all right, here's how many breasts you're going to see. You're going to see, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, we ran more bad softcore porn. You know, I mean, people don't even remember this stuff now, but I mean, there was a type of porn called West German porn. You know, there was West German softcore porn. There was obviously before the fall of the Berlin Wall. You know, and there was a movie that Showtime owned. Showtime being the parent company of the movie channel. They owned this movie called She's 19 and Ready. And she was about 45 and she had never been ready. But anyway, because of the title, I think the title alone, I think every time we would show it, it would get this huge viewer spike, this huge rating. So we kept showing She's 19 and Ready over and over and over again. And I ran out of things to say about She's 19 and Ready. We had another one called Wild in Ibiza. There was also West Germany. It was set on the Spanish island of Ibiza, and it was like stupid party film. We had one called Adventures of a Plumber's Mate, which was the dreaded British sex comedy, where the plumber's assistant comes over to fix the woman's pipes, and then he fixed the woman's pipes. Yeah.
A friend of mine actually talks about that movie a lot.
You know about Adventures of a Plumber's Mate? You remember Adventures of a Plumber's Mate? There was a whole series of them. Adventures of a... What are the other titles in the series?
Wait, sorry.
No, when I was a kid, during the free movie channel weekends, we'd always get a bunch of videotapes and record everything that we found. Well, one day I was alone at home going through all the videotapes, and I came across that one. That became my new favorite videotape.
You know, the British have always thought that it's really funny for a man to lose all his clothes and run naked down the street with funny music playing in the background. That's just like, that is so funny in England, you know. That's like the funniest joke you can do. And only in England, though, you know. And then the Italians, we also had Italian softcore porn, and the Italians thought it was hysterically funny for they think pedophilia is extremely funny. they think that, you know, naughty priests that are trying to sleep with the little girls is really, really funny in Italy. So I mean, each country, for some reason, all this stuff came from Europe. I don't know why we bought it, how we ended up with it, but they had all this European softcore. I guess because at the time they didn't really make it in America.
Yeah.
And so now we make a much worse form of softcore in America, which are those Showtime originals that run on Friday night. Those are horrible.
And Playmate of the Apes, and what was the, I don't know.
Well, those are, many of those are made under fake names by a guy I bet many of you are familiar with, who also works in horror, named Jim Wynorski.
Okay.
And Jim may have been at this very convention in the past. I don't know if he has been, but he makes a lot of those original softcore. Softcore porn is something I don't really understand. It's the most unsatisfying form of cinema ever. All right.
I see we've got a question.
In the current state of cinema, what can you recommend? What movies could you recommend that are keeping the drive-in spirit alive? Like, what are some of your favorite films right now?
Most of the, unfortunately, in the current atmosphere, when Hollywood is scared of the coming digital era, and no one has figured out exactly how to make money on streaming movies yet. And so a lot of the great indie movies are not getting the audience that they deserve. So there's a lot of great indie movies out there that I will see at festivals, or I will see at conventions like this, and then I'll see the director like 6 months later, 9 months later, hey, how you doing with that? And it'll be, oh, it's like, it's gotten 30 excellent reviews, and people have trouble finding it, and we're streaming it on our website for $3, but, you know, only 50 people have streamed it, and, you know, it's like, it's horrible. It's like, because there's no distribution, there's no easy distribution outlet for these guys anymore. So, for example, there's a movie it's like over a year old now called, I think the working title, it used to be something else, but I think the working title, you can find it online, is The Frankenstein Syndrome, and it's directed by Sean Tretta, and it's a very, very excellent low-budget film, low-budget horror film with great acting, and it's even a genre that I don't even normally like, which is trapped in a building, can't get out, you know, and anyway, that's an example of a great one that hasn't found its audience yet. It's still struggling. It's trying to find, you know, enough people for it to make its money back. There are quite a few. I mean, just last week I saw the world premiere of Camel Spiders, directed by the aforementioned Jim Wynorski. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube videos of the giant spiders that the soldiers in Afghanistan send back, you know, the spiders hanging on the end of the bayonet and everything. So he made a horror film based on these giant spiders that come from Afghanistan. Dire Wolf, which Fred Olen Ray just made, is an interesting indie film with Maxwell Caulfield is the sheriff with obsessive compulsive disorder who's trying to locate and kill I think they're changing the name to Dino Wolf because they used the type, nobody knew what a dire wolf was, but a dire wolf was these giant prehistoric wolves that are found in the La Brea tar pits and other places. And so these are all like low budget horror sci-fi type fare that are not finding their audience because we're still waiting to see how these things are going to be distributed in the new age of, you know, there's only room for like 50 movies a year that are like, and they're all like $300 million movies that are in 3D, you know, and so we got to find a way to get the rest of the movies out. And one way is like there are some, for example, in Texas we have Alamo Drafthouse, which is a great dinner theater type movie theater that shows a lot of cult films, a lot of indie films, and there are increasingly a number of these specialty theaters that movies can be released through, and but beyond that, you know, you can't get them into the AMC 24 screen Cineplex anymore.
Yeah. What do you think about like a lot of these video vending machines? You know, and how they'll have like 3 or 4 good ones. And then
Well, those are great. I mean, I was looking at Redbox a couple of weeks ago, and I would say half of the horror titles were indie titles.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good for the indie world. And Blockbuster now is like moving heavily into the vending machines, and they don't have as many indie titles, but they have some because you know why? The indie titles don't cost them as much.
Yeah.
And so they like the indie titles. So those are good. Patronize those boxes. Those are good. Yeah.
Hey, I got a question, a personal question. With all of the resurgence of the 70s style grindhouse films, basically the Rodriguez films, you know, Hobo with a Shotgun, Machete, Grindhouse, all of these other great 70s style films.
You mean Machete?
Yes, exactly. Do you see this as a trend that will continue, or do you think it's only going to be Rodriguez making these style of movies?
Well, no, I think, you know, all those filmmakers I just named, you know, they never stopped making those grindhouse movies. So it's just that they're for a different audience today. They're for a hipper audience. They're for an audience that like can appreciate the movie on 2 or 3 different levels. You know, it's not like, I mean, none of these guys that are sort of the old like, oh, let's bring back the grindhouse. They don't want to really bring back the grindhouse. Nobody wants to bring back the grindhouse. The grindhouse was old guys in raincoats, you know. and so that was when, you know. Movies were not really made to be consumed. I mean, it's like they didn't even save their prints. You know, it's like after the week run, they just like threw the movie away. You know, so. But if you're talking about the exploitation era, yeah, I think what may save exploitation movies. You know, exploitation movies are always reinvented anyway. For every 5 years, there's a new way to get them out. So. I think what will save it is TV. You know, TV increasingly has an interest in, and I'm talking about, you know, regular cable TV channels like Sci-Fi, USA, Spike. They have an increased interest in the culture of the exploitation movie, and I think that's what will save it.
Amazing films.
Yeah, although these very directors that I've been referring to have been telling me that the last 2 sci-fi versus films tanked, and so they're worried now that sci-fi isn't going to order anymore because you know, maybe the end of that trend.
Do you have a favorite out of the sci-fi original movies, like a Sharktopus or Cyclops?
No, I like them all. I like the fact that they can like buy 3 minutes of CGI from the place in Bulgaria. You know, just like enough to show the Sharktopus swimming and then jumping out of the water one time and then one fight. You know, and they can build a whole movie around that. You know.
Do we have any more questions from the? I could just talk all day, so I want to make sure that these people are getting.
Now this question's hard for me to ask without laughing, but I remember when you hosted King Kong 76, and just Jessica Lange's one-liners in that movie were priceless, and I'm wondering especially what you thought of when she explained how she was the all-American girl saved from the exploding yacht by Deep Throat.
You know, the scene is not vivid in my mind. But you know what I most remember about that movie is it's probably the finest moment of the World Trade Center, right? They used the World Trade Center for that. Well, no. The greatest thing about that movie is when they were making it. Dino De Laurentiis gave my favorite quote of all time, which was he says, "When monkey die, everybody cry." Dino De Laurentiis' explanation of why King Kong is a classic.
I think we've got another question.
Okay, when it comes to the infamous subject of remakes, and I know this has been rehashed over and over and over, if there was a movie that you think should be remade, what would it be?
Well, I would say scour the 70s and early 80s for movies that failed as opposed to movies that were huge successes. Now, a guy that I know in Texas, bought the rights to The Legend of Boggy Creek, which I thought was, like, why? Why would you, like, how can you match? First of all, The Legend of Boggy Creek is spectacularly bad. It's so spectacularly bad that it's good, And I think that's the kind of movie you cannot remake. There's no way you can improve on that. There's no way you can get to the authenticity of the original Boggy Creek. But if someone were to from about 1969 to 1974, there were so many bad but interesting movies made that if you were to pick some of those plots and remake them, but it's like, why be lazy? Why not just write a script? I mean, I formed one reason that we have so many bad movies is that there's no respect for the screenwriter. I formed a production company about a year ago and asked for horror scripts and got about 1,100 of them. And so, including many good ones. And so there's no dearth of writing talent. What you have in many cases is you have writer, director, producers. And if they're good writers, they're bad directors. And if they're good directors, they're bad writers. And they shouldn't be doing all those jobs. That's too many hats. And so since there's no studio head to tell them, no, you can't write this. You're a good director, but you can't write this. You got to work with this director, with this writer over here. Then we end up with like mediocre product because there's no Roger Corman guy. Roger's still around. Roger Corman is 85 years old though. I mean, he's not making that many movies anymore. So there's no Roger Corman guy saying, no, you work with him, you work with him, and you work with him to put the creative teams together. All of those really great campy movies of the 70s and 80s that everyone loves, they were extremely talented people that made them. Even in a film that today nobody watches much, like Screwballs. In the dead genre of the youth sex comedy. It was very well written. It was very well directed. It was very fun. It was very light. It was very well done. And it was because all the people involved were very extremely talented young people that Roger Corman had found and put together in a team. To make that movie. And we don't have those guys anymore putting together the teams.
This is going to be our last question. We're running short on time.
If you want to talk more, just come to the table, and I'll be here all afternoon.
Sweet.
Speaking of the Corman era, the 60s, and that era, what did you think of the old American International and the Hammer films?
Well, I love both of those. I love the American International films and the Hammer films. Two entirely different companies. I'll tell a quick Sam Arkoff story, okay? Sam Arkoff, like, right before the end of his life, I think he died in I want to say the early 90s, but somebody can look it up for me, or late 80s, early 90s maybe. But right before he died, he was at a party, and he saw a guy who had just had a success with a gay film, and a gay-themed film about AIDS. And and Sam Arkoff went over to him, he has a cigar and everything, he's saying, this gay thing. He says, "Do you think it's big?" And he says, "Yeah, we did pretty well with it." He says, He says, "I want to get into that." That's like 1 week before he dies. He's thinking, "Oh, I've found the next new thing." So that's what makes a great, exploitation producer. So, and the Hammer films, a little bit different in that those. I don't understand exactly what the creative relationship was between the three guys at Hammer, but what I do know is that when they fell apart as a team, Hammer fell apart, and then people have been trying to put it back together. They're still trying to put it back together today. There's always been a Hammer. There's still a Hammer. It's never stopped existing, but it's like, for the past 40 years, they've been trying to recreate the magic of the late 50s and the 60s, and a little bit in the early 70s when they're making those lesbian-themed horror films, But that seems like a meteor, just like it happened. It was 15 years. It happened in an unlikely place, in England, and then it was never to be repeated. Occasionally a good horror film comes out of England, but they're rare. They're few and far between.
All right, well, I guess with that said, we have to get going. But it's been a thrill, so.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this question and answer channel. If you are a VIP member, please hold up your pass. You do not have to leave.